Great.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
Okay, super. Now, if I can leave this on.
It's up to you.
I don't know that it's going to shut anything down since you're now the host.
Yeah, you are just a regular participant at this point, but it won't,
Okay, so if I log off, I'm sorry, I really would like to watch it, but I got up slow and steady this morning and I thought I'll be okay. I have absolutely no energy. It's like, it's very much like COVID, long COVID. And that's what I thought I was dealing with yesterday. I was really draggy. I've been draggy since last week, but not like this. Not like this.
Have you taken a COVID test or?
Yep.
And you were negative, I guess.
Fine.
Yeah.
Every time my long COVID kicks in,
Uh,
I take a test just to make sure. No, fine. But then Courtney said this morning, she was on last night, and she goes, hey, I have staff dropping left and right, and there's a virus. You lose your sense of smell. You have absolutely no energy. She said, I talked to her last night, and she said it mimicked long COVID. No pain, cough, which I had this morning. And it took about 5 or 6 days to get over it.
Wow.
Right. So, okay.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Apologies. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll just, and I'm so ticked because I've got time this week to be working on stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Really? So, I mean, I can only do what I can do, but no, I'm hopping back in my bed right behind.
Okay. Well, get sleep. Take care.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. And I really look forward to listening to the presentation. In fact, while I'm talking to you, I was going to see, I know I moved it from here. It's the little container I have with the
the thumb drive.
with a thumb drive. So yeah. So I'm very sorry, but
I'm sorry for you. This is miserable. And it's always miserable in the summer too.
I'm thinking about bringing on Nelson Wynn maybe to talk about dopamine
abuse.
Yes, dopamine dysregulation syndrome. I had an elderly guy, he's a PhD and an MD, who reached out to me through LinkedIn repeatedly, and I'm not on that very much, so it's only when I happen to see something come through. And I looked him up into a lot of medical devices, research in medical devices. Well, typical for a lot of LinkedIn accounts, we finally meet on Zoom. The pictures of him are from maybe 30 years ago. And he's now probably, I would say, in his maybe early 80s.
Oh.
And he has a device, a cranial device that he's not promoting that would go through the FDA, the medical device, or he's wording it in a way that it doesn't need FDA approval, but can help people in terms of their motor functioning. It's almost like focused ultrasound, but not the same. He had a horrible picture of himself with it on. I mean, I just thought, oh my God, you're not going to share that picture, are you? He's looking for investors. And I said, his name is David as well. I said, David, you're welcome. If you'd like to present, to our group, I said, I don't see a problem with that. I said, but if you're looking for investors, this is not the right population. Part of me, I respect him in that he's still at it. I think he's 80, maybe 81, 82. I respect him. He's at it all these years later. And I initially mentioned October's speaker series because that's the next one I have. But I'd really rather get somebody talking about dopamine dysregulation syndrome. And of course, this guy emails me yesterday to say, hey, I'm looking forward to it. I've got a presentation. What I don't want to be doing is selling snake oil, promoting snake oil to somebody. And I'm really caught. I don't know quite how to handle this. I mean, obviously the guy is, he's out there. If I look him up, it will list some offices, but how we were still listed at the library 5 years later.
Mhm.
So I don't think he's with any office anymore, but I'm trying to figure out what the heck to do with him and whether to maybe have him present to like the Living in the Solution support group as just a trial. Just, you want feedback?
Mhm.
Let's do this, as opposed to speaker series. That's us bringing somebody reputable in. I mean, yes, he has an MD. Yes, he has a PhD, but I'm struggling
Well,
here and I'm not quite sure.
yeah, I
He found me on LinkedIn because I'm listed,
yeah.
with Parkinson's.
Yeah, I think it's kind of awkward because it does, as much as you might say this is not an endorsement, it's hard to not have the
That's right.
appearance of, just
That's
giving them
right.
the platform.
So maybe what I'll do, I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe what I'll do is reach back out to him. We had a Zoom, he wanted to have a Zoom meeting and it was going to be 30 minutes. And I thought, okay, that's great. I can do a 30-minute because I was going into another one
Mhm.
an hour later. Well, it just turned out he had a free account, and that's why he said 30 minutes. He had trouble running his PowerPoint. And my heart breaks from he had trouble running his PowerPoint. It's not that he didn't know what he was doing, but he had trouble.
Right.
And he can't redo a new Zoom account. He gets me he gets me virtually through Google.
Okay.
And we set up that way. We meet another 45 minutes. I'm going to send you his name. I just want you to see if you do any searches.
Okay.
I'll forward you his last email. That'll have his
Okay.
name and stuff.
Okay.
Just see
Yeah,
if you
I'll see what I find.
anything. I've truly looked, and I can't find anything.
Mhm.
Unlike when John passed away, we were contacting the people who'd been in our wedding party. And I reached out to one guy who was my graduate assistant in school psych. And Susan knew him. Bright guy, really bright. Grew up in my hometown in Hinsdale, Illinois. Child predator in prison for 20 years back on the East Coast.
Oh.
John and I witnessed his wedding in the mountains. We were his only witnesses. And I'm going, and then when I looked back, I thought, okay, yeah,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So that I found, but I haven't found anything on this guy.
That's good. Step one. Are you a child predator?
Right.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
Yeah.
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 So, all right, I'm going to let you go. I hope all goes really well. You are recording, so I think that's super. If there's a problem when I log off, text me.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay. And then I'm just going to shoot you. I'm with the computer right now. I'm just going to forward you this email just so you see it.
Okay.
And just if you happen to have the time, I don't want you to go out of your way, but if you happen to have the time,
sure.
Just look. And my only other solution is to say, hey, we've had something come up, so we've got October committed. But if you'd like to just run this as a trial with one of the groups that I facilitate, we can start there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, feel better.
Thank you so much. I'm sure I will. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Holly, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I remember you from, and here's our speaker from Chula Vista, I think.
Right.
Let's see. Here comes Christel.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Hey, how are you? It's great to meet you.
How are you?
Doing
nice
well.
to meet you.
We have one participant with us in Holly, so hopefully we'll get a few more as well.
Okay, wonderful. I'll make some last minute notes here.
And we are recording this. Is that okay, Christel? I think I can't remember if we talked about that, but
Yeah,
we do. We don't do a great deal of promotion from these, but it's just nice to have a library for people to look back at.
understood. Yep, completely fine. Thank you.
Great. Ah. Let's see. Christel, do you pronounce your name Crystal or Christel? Do you have a preference?
Crystal.
Or Crystal.
Crystal.
Awesome.
Exactly right.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you.
And great.
And David, I have a slide deck that I'll just be sharing on screen, but if you'd like that for
Oh,
your library too, just let me
that
know.
that would be awesome. And
Okay.
do you want to, let me make sure that, do you want to
Oh,
try
I'll
sharing
say-
something just to make sure that,
Yep, great call. I better pull it up, huh? Okay, let me see now. See if I can share. Okay, it says I'm disabled from sharing.
gotcha. Okay, I'm just changing that now.
Okay,
I didn't actually set this meeting up. This is, so I wasn't sure. That's great. So you should be fine now.
okay, let's see.
There it goes.
Okay, you can see it. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, I will stop sharing. Okay, perfect.
Super. Can you also tell us about, and I could save this for a question if you like, sort of what is kinesiology all about? And I think I understand what that's about, but it'd be helpful, I think, for people to get that. And this is probably part of your talk, but
Yes,
and
it
also,
definitely is.
not everyone is. I'll tell you our backstory. Is my partner is David Higgins, who has Parkinson's, and he met Chris. Oh gosh, 10 plus years ago, probably now. And he had been working with a physical therapist at UCSD, and the time with that physical therapist was ending. And Chris offered to meet with David and his physical therapist at the park, and she agreed. And basically, as my recollection of it was that basically the physical therapist and Chris did this sort of Vulcan mind meld thing, and she translated over to Chris physically what David needed in particular, specifically for him, what his specific needs were, and then we've gone from there, and it was awesome. It was perfect, and for David, and he's continued to work with Mika right now, but everyone at Renew Health seems to have that sort of idea of real personalized support.
Yes.
So
So we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it'll be good to revisit this in the question and answer portion. But kind of from the outside looking in, I always say looking in at sessions, a lot of it's going to look very similar because it's all movement patterns. It's all, activity-based therapies and things like that to reach a certain outcome that we're shooting for. One of the one of the main differences between kinesiology and physical therapy is really the insurance-based model that we don't bill insurance. We're typically private pay, and especially Renew Health, we're private pay. And with that, we're afforded the freedom to work outside kind of the constraints of an insurance-based program. We're not limited to CPT codes and doctor's prescriptions and things like that. We can take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And I usually just give like a little example of, you take a fall, you hurt your ankle, and you need rehab for that ankle. But in the meantime, maybe you're wasting away a little bit in the upper body, you're losing some balance and things like that. So you go in for physical therapy and you get that taken care of. You rehab that ankle. But as a kinesiologist, we can work that ankle and then start to target some of the initial reasons why you took a spill in the first place. Maybe it was balance, maybe it was fear, maybe it was lack of proprioception. We can work with the preventative measures so that falls are mitigated for the future. And so that's typically the main difference. But usually, when people are asked that, say, well, it's really about money and how those services are shared.
No, that's a big part of it. And I think having something, having this as an option for people is just fantastic. So
yeah, and it's a long-term option, right? So
yeah,
we're also not limited to a set number of sessions.
yeah,
That's a big
exactly. Okay, it's just 3:00. I am going to step aside for a moment. Usually we get a few more people coming in. But I need to go remind David that he's due for a meds at 3:00. I'll be right back.
No problem. Okay. You comfortable here?
Yes. Let's see.
Great. Let's see. Oh, good.
So David,
Yes.
hi, this is Johnson.
Hi, Lee.
I just wanted to say I'm going to be on mute a lot of the time because I need to make a meal, but I'm listening and making
Okay.
notes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We're still getting a couple people in. Let's wait just a couple more minutes if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
There's Rusty. and Steve
Hi.
Simpson.
Rusty Etzel.
Hey,
Hi.
Rusty, how are you?
Don't ask. Don't
Oh, Rusty,
ask.
it's good to hear your voice.
It's good
Thanks
to
for
be-
joining us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. How are you? How are you doing?
We're doing okay. We're doing
David's
okay.
good. David's good.
Yeah. Yes, he's actually doing well. So TBS was a good thing for him.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm happy. How old is he anyway?
65.
Oh, see, I'm 85. So what happens when you get older? Your brain shrinks,
Ah,
and they
ah,
don't get the spot quite as readily as a younger person like David.
I see.
And that's
Interesting.
that's what Dr. Teagarden told me. Teagarden, did I say her name right?
Uh-huh.
Did I say it right?
I think so.
Kathy, I
Kathy Wynn?
said Teagarden. Is that right?
Teagarden.
No,
Oh, are you thinking of Dr. Longardner?
Long Gardner. That's it. Long Gardner. Yeah, she's my doctor.
Oh, she's great. She's terrific.
She's really good, really good. I like her very much. She's a good person too.
Yeah, definitely true. Well, we've got about 10 of us here, and so I'd like to welcome you all to the San Diego Central County Parkinson Support Group Speaker Series. And this month, we have the pleasure of hosting Christel Mitrovich. Thank you. I've got a note. Yes. Christel Mitrovich from Renew Health. And we're going to learn a little more from Christel about this, but I can just say personally, my partner David Higgins has been working with Renew Health now for about a decade, and it's the work has been critical for his physical well-being. And today, I think you'll learn a little bit more about why that's all worked out. So with that, Christel, I'll let you go. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Give me a moment to share my screen. Very professional today. I have a slide deck for everyone.
Awesome.
All right. Okay.
And actually, if everybody would mute, that would be great for now. We'll do a Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions, and you can put it in the chat, I will keep an eye on that as well.
Perfect. And I've made notes to myself too to take pause and ask questions. Okay, well, hello everyone and welcome. My talk today will be highlighting the key role that clinical kinesiology plays in the Parkinson's community and how it can support Parkinson's patients and their family members through an ever-changing landscape. All right, hold on. Okay, there we go. I'm going to shrink this too. Okay, so just a little bit about me. My name is Christel Mitrovich, and I'm the Director of Operations for Renew Health. And it's definitely my pleasure to be talking with you today. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you listening to what we have to say, and I will certainly appreciate questions that you have after. So just a little bit about me. I graduated from San Diego State University with my master's in exercise physiology. And I've been in neuro rehab since 2002. I started in spinal cord injury with the owner of Renew Health. We met there long ago at a spinal cord injury rehab facility. Fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm a SoCal native, and I currently live in Orange County and the city of Mission Viejo with my husband and 2 children. I love what I do, and I'm grateful for the career that I've had thus far. So we're going to start here because this is kind of the whole basis of what we're talking about today. But what is kinesiology? And it's a term that has grown in popularity for the last several years, but it's still not kind of a popular career path out there. So not everyone knows about it. But essentially, it's the study of human movement. And it's how muscles and the skeletal muscle work together to create movement. Now, clinical kinesiology, which is what we do as Team Renew, it's a more specialized version of kinesiology in that it is applied kinesiology, meaning practitioners like me use kinesiological strategies and techniques to adapt movement activities for a variety of medical conditions. Exercises and activities are adapted to fit different needs of the people that we work with, and the varying levels of ability that they may present with in the moment. And it also takes into consideration different medical diagnoses. Similar to physical therapy, clinical kinesiology can be delivered in home or in clinic. So a little background on Renew Health. We are a team of experienced kinesiologists that provide customized movement programs for our clientele all throughout Southern California. Our services are provided both in our San Diego clinic and in private residences throughout San Diego counties, Orange County, and LA counties. We specialize in neurological rehab and mobility issues related to aging. We supplement and also complement the healthcare system by being a long-term option in the continuum of care for patients with chronic conditions. And this is really what our main focus is, those chronic conditions. We work alongside physical therapists, doctors, and other medical staff, as well as care teams to provide rehab programs, maintenance programs, and preventive programs. The techniques and strategies we use are evidence-based and supported by scientific findings. And we actually pride ourselves on helping to drive the healthcare industry forward and pushing the boundaries to what is possible. Several years ago, Chris Corpus, the president and founder of Renew Health, and I had a sit-down meeting and decided that we were going to make that a part of Renew Health's mission. And ever since then, we've partnered with adaptive tech companies, neuroscience researchers, and industry leaders to lend our hand and expertise of clinical kinesiology so that new strategies and solutions can come to those who need them. And Parkinson's at this time is our main focus. Just a little bit more about us. We serve a variety of clientele with chronic conditions, things like stroke, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, dementia, and Alzheimer's, and really any condition that leads to a mobility issue. Okay, so before we move on to the next slide, which is really the meat of the talk today, I just want to address a kind of a question that I usually get asked right about this time, which is what's the difference between kinesiology and physical therapy? And without talking too much about it, essentially the two industries are very complementary to one another. And from the outside looking in on a session, things will look very similar in terms of the types of therapies and activities that are going on in a session. But the main difference between a kinesiologist and a physical therapist is a kinesiologist is typically private pay and also not bound to the constraints of the insurance-based system, meaning that we don't need to stick within the confines of CPT codes. We can step back and look at the bigger picture of a patient and their needs and figure out programming moving forward. So in this example here that I usually give, let's say a Parkinson's patient had a fall and twisted an ankle, and that ankle requires rehab to get back to typical strength. Well, a doctor will write a prescription for rehab for that ankle, and a physical therapist can rehab that ankle back to 100% health. But in the meantime, what's happening with that Parkinson's patient, because now they're moving a little less, their muscles are atrophying elsewhere, maybe they have some more fear of falling. we as kinesiologists can work alongside that physical therapist to keep that patient strong, work on confidence building, and identify preventive measures so that once that ankle is rehabbed, falls are mitigated for the future. All right, now back to our regular program. Okay, so, and I hope you hear the sarcasm in my voice, but who's seen this message? You know, I'm sure there's not one person in this audience that hasn't seen or heard about this message. Exercise is medicine, exercise is medicine. Ad nauseum, I'm sure. And we all know this to be true. The evidence is overwhelming, in fact. We know that exercise can help build strength, cardiovascular health, bone health, and it helps to improve mental and emotional well-being. And it's even more critical for Parkinson's patients. Exercise can mitigate social isolation, it can increase dopamine levels, slow the progression of Parkinson's, and even help manage Parkinson's symptoms. And that is known, and it's wonderful, and it's what we're all striving for. But what happens when traditional exercise options or the channels we're used to using aren't available to us? What happens when we find ourselves knocked off track due to an unforeseen illness? Or what if we had a fall and now we're limited by our fear? Or what if the Parkinson's symptoms I'm dealing with are just too intense in the moment and I can't get to my normal exercise classes or my normal exercise programs? What if I sustained a temporary injury, either me or a caregiver? And what do we do in those cases? How do we keep moving forward? And that's where kinesiology is much more than exercise for Parkinson's. This is where kinesiology can bridge those gaps and keep you moving forward, even in the toughest of times. Kinesiology provides a platform for alternative movement pathways, and it helps us find movement solutions so that we can always maximize whatever is available to us in that moment. You can capitalize on whatever you can do in the moment. Kinesiology provides us with those options to stay productive, even when we don't feel it. A kinesiologist's job is to adjust to our clients' abilities real time, in the moment. Our job is to optimize sensory input and maximize functional movement in our clients. Sensory input is any information that our body receives from the outside world. Things like sound, touch, gravity, even hypergravity, added weight, sight, smell, taste. All of these inputs affect how our body can move. And as we know with Parkinson's, things change constantly. Day by day, hour by hour, even minute by minute. And as a practitioner, our job is to ask what kind of stimulus can be provided in this moment to achieve the best physical outcomes for the client. Right now in this moment, what can I do? It's our job to provide our clients with the confidence and the know-how to maneuver through the best of times and the worst. It's empowering them to always stay productive in their movement programs. Any questions so far? All right. So this next session is really just a series of real life scenarios that we as practitioners come across daily with our Parkinson's clientele. And it's meant to just give you an idea of what clinical kinesiologists do in the moment to help navigate through some of the more common Parkinson's symptoms. And hopefully it sparks some ideas in your own life moving forward. So freezing of gait. Okay, so these are actually supposed to be much cooler and moving. There you go. Okay. Freezing of gait. So very common. And this is something that we work with and work through constantly with our clientele. And so what I'm going to talk about next is just some kind of example of what I call workarounds, ways to still maximize movement and neural patterns while still facing the reality of the freezing of gait. So one of the tricks that we use to kind of work around freezing of gait is walking backwards. That's a trick that we use a lot. A lot of times our clients will be stuck. Maybe they're walking through a threshold and that freezing happens, or they're needing to make a turn and the freezing happens. In order to still use the same neural pathways, we'll change things up and we'll have them work backwards. And you can see in the little stick guy there, it's a toe heel, but it's the same neural patterns. It's the same sensory pathways that we're targeting. And that's definitely something that we use when someone, you know, is kind of struggling with that forward movement. Additionally, we will use standing weight shifts, the shifting side to side. It's not a traditional exercise that you would think of, you know, that, okay, I'm gonna weight shift side to side, but it's a very effective tool. Again, you're targeting the same neural pathways, the same sensory pathways. You may not be walking forward, but you're building a foundation for future movement, maybe in the next hour, maybe in the next day. But that side to side movement is definitely a good trick for us to use, because then sometimes it kind of breaks us out of that pattern of that freezing of gait, and then we can continue to move forward. Or if walking forward is not an option for that day, the side to side lateral shifts is just building that foundation for future movement. We use things like music, metronomes. I'm sure you're all very familiar with that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but these are all things that we'll use on a daily basis to to mitigate the freezing of gait. And then if walking or side to side movement is just not in the cards that day, there's still a lot that can be done even in standing balance. Vestibular work, sensory work, standing with our feet in tandem, things that you can be very productive in, but while in a standing and stationary position. So, like I said, we're always making good use of time, and it's about feeling productive in however you're presenting in your Parkinson's syndrome symptoms in that moment. Okay. Dystonia and dyskinesia. So again, all very common. I'm sure things that you deal with on the daily. So when we have clients that are really struggling with their dystonia, we will do what's called a negative. And you can see the woman there doing a stand to sit. Oftentimes we're working on the upward motion. We're working on the sit to stand. Well, if that's just not in the cards, we can go in reverse and start to break down that dystonia by doing things backwards. So this is a tool that we use quite often, going from stand to sit, breaking down that tone, letting gravity help us break down some of that tone and get that pattern there. Again, same neural pathways, a different movement, but very productive. And again, building towards that future movement in the days or minutes to come. With dyskinesia, oftentimes we will add weight. Seems kind of counterintuitive, but we will do what's called hypergravity. We'll add a weight vest. You can see the woman in the bottom right corner. That's a weight vest there. That's a common tool that we use with our clientele, especially when they're really struggling with their dyskinesia. We'll put that weight on, and it acts as a kind of a tether, a beacon, a sensory beacon, if you will, and helps to, in many cases, calm down that dyskinesia and allow for more purposeful and traditional movement. As well, you can see ankle weights, any kind of weight that we can add, dumbbells, to add that extra sensory input. We often don't think about feeling our hand when it's extended in front of us, but put a 5-pound weight and we're very aware of our hand at that point. So that's definitely a tool as kinesiologists we will use, this idea of hypergravity, adding more weight, more sensory input. hemipresis and general disconnect from the body. I hear this a lot. My clients will tell me, I feel like a floating head. I just don't feel connected with my body. Or I come in for a session and I see that my client is really favoring one side, standing in one side, even kind of curving to one side, maybe to the right side or the left side. And so for these types of presentations, these are some of the tools that we will use to kind of get us through that, that moment and still be productive even in those presentations. And oftentimes I feel we've seen success with these strategies to help get the person reconnected with their body, be more even in their body, standing in both legs rather than in just one. Hypergravity, adding weight, full body activities with weight. So a lot of medicine ball activities where you can see the gentleman in the upper right is doing a standing chopping motion where he's crossing the center of his body with a weight. It's forcing him to stand in both legs evenly. So if he presents to me as having some hemipresis or favoring one side, I'm going to really challenge that side that's not getting a lot of input from the brain and the spinal cord. So a lot of medicine ball twists. You can see the couple next to him standing medicine ball turns where we're standing back to back and we're twisting and we're bringing the ball across our body and handing it over the other way. So again, a lot of twisting, a lot of demand on all sides of the body, weight shifts in the legs, really challenging the core and the arms. It's a full body activity. Offset weights, really challenging the system there. Having, instead of holding 2 dumbbells, 1 in each hand, put a really heavy dumbbell in one hand and that side that's really not getting a lot of activation that day, really challenging it. That's something that we use a lot, again, to kind of mitigate those symptoms and also help the client connect with their body more. And even if the symptoms aren't solved that moment, we notice that maybe in the days to come, it helps to mitigate those types of symptoms for the future. So these are definitely tools that we use to kind of get through this presentation, the hemipresis and the general disconnect, this idea of this floating head, if you will. And when balance is an issue, fear is an issue, or we just can't stand that day, there's always something that can be done. There's always a workaround. And even if it means we're doing simple neck rotations, we're doing visual work, we're working on our vestibular system through torso rotations, doing core work. You can see the middle picture there. There's some resistance from the practitioner there as the client looks to rotate their body from left to right. And these are progressive exercises. If a client's really struggling, you can start with some neck rotations and then build up to resisted torso rotations and then build up to the last rotation, which is on the bottom there, where now there's a weighted rotation and the patient or the client is doing that on their own. Again, always something that can be done, and to build confidence, and again, to always feel like you're maximizing every little ounce of movement that you have. So there's always productivity. And then, hold on. And then there's those times where we just feel great. We're hitting on all cylinders. Everything is firing. Dopamine levels are great. There's no dyskinesia, no dystonia, no pain, no fatigue. Again, as kinesiologists, our job is to maximize those times too, when we're just feeling great. And believe it or not, we do plyometrics with our clients. We do boxing. We bring in the agility ladder. Go play basketball or some tennis. We want to squeeze every ounce of movement out of every moment that we can. And so when our clients are feeling great, we're going to capitalize on that too. So as a kinesiologist, kind of going back to the difference between physical therapy and kinesiologists, if I'm a physical therapist and I'm working on your Parkinson's symptoms, or I'm working on maybe an injury that you needed rehab, I'd be very constrained to work on that. But I may come to my client and they may be unable to stand that day and I need to do the chair exercises. Or I may come the next day and they're feeling amazing. And then I'm taking them outside and we're doing some agility ladder. We're doing some jump rope, something else. I, as a kinesiologist, don't have those limitations. I can work and maximize at every single moment. So in the end, kinesiology requires creativity and the know-how to maximize opportunities for movement, whatever that may be. And we use these solutions to help our clients learn new skills, but also practice old ones, even when the movement seems limited. It allows for creative new ways to challenge your central nervous system, your bodies, to help slow the progression of Parkinson's. Kinesiology can mitigate fear and anxiety that just because you're not going to be able to do the traditional exercise class or the rock steady, the boxing that you're used to going to, you're not missing out. There's always a way to be productive, and it helps to build confidence and a sense of empowerment to realize there's always a solution and there's always a way to move forward, even if that means going backward or sideways. Any questions?
This is great.
Okay.
So Christel, hi, this is Lee Johnson.
Yes, hello, Lee.
And what I wondered, you talked about a clinic and then you said something about going to your patients or clients. So we're all in San Diego. So could you tell us how people can connect with you in San Diego?
Yes. I can, in the chat, I can send you our website, which you'll have all the contact information there. And then I can also give you our actually, I'll just give you Chris's phone number so you can call him directly. He'll love that. Because there's a couple options. You can go in clinic, or we can have practitioners go to your home. So I will go ahead and do that now.
Okay, so we can go to the clinic or someone could come to our home.
And you can do both. You can have a hybrid program.
Christel, I'll say David Higgins often will meet the therapist, the kinesiologist he works with in the park, in a park near our home, which is awesome as well. It's nice to be outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. I personally have worked, I currently work with a client in a park. I work with a client who's temporarily out of their home due to a flood. So we meet at the hotel that they're staying at. So we're very mobile, and it's not just private residence, but we'll meet wherever. Sometimes we want to go to the beach, just change it up.
Where is
So you mentioned a phone number you're going to put in the chat?
Yes, I'm pulling it up right now. I'm going to give you Chris's number.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. So are there, I kind of went over the pretty basic symptoms there. Are there any symptoms that you'd like to discuss? Maybe there's a nice little strategy we can talk about now. If anyone has questions about that, just let me know.
So that might be a specific example of something someone's struggling with. It might be a balance issue or a particular kind of movement that's challenging. Is that right?
Yes. I guess in the end, the take-home message is kinesiology can kind of fill the gaps where we all know exercise is great. We all would love to go to those classes, but sometimes it's just not possible. But there are things you can do. And so
you've been watching this, I haven't.
That's where a kinesiologist has that know-how to work with the movement that you have in the moment. And that literally can change minute by minute. In the beginning of the sessions, there may be very limited movement, very limited, and a lot of dystonia or dyskinesia. But as you progressively work through that and you get the right sensory input, by the end, you may be running in circles. It happens
Right.
all the time. So
Right.
that's the kinesiologist's job, is to gauge you at every moment in real time. So Chris is going to love that. I just gave you his direct line. That's for the San Diego clinic in the San Diego area. So if you ever have questions, you can reach out to him and he'll be mad at me.
Let's see.
Where is that
So would
located?
you,
Sorry.
would you go back to, my wife joined late and she has problems where her feet are stuck to the floor. So if you'd go back to the freezing of gait slide and talk about those kinds of interventions, I'd appreciate it.
Yes,
She didn't get on until like just recently.
not a problem. Give me a moment. I'll go back to that.
Sure.
And these are just a few. Everybody's different. I mean, so typically with your wife's freezing of gait, is it does it tend to happen at the same time, the same area? Is it fear-based? Is it totally random? I mean, these are some of the things we can, how can I do this?
Exercising in a big room. Walking in a big space.
Turn on your video, Beth.
Okay, hold on. I'm doing that right now. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna show you here. Okay. So freezing of gait, one of the easiest things to do is a lateral movement, because you're already there, you're already in position, you're standing with feet, side by side typically. And so a nice workaround that we use often, and it works, eight times out of 10, is a lateral movement. And because a lot of times freezing of gait is it's a disconnect brain from the spinal cord. But it's not a disconnect from the spinal cord to the body. And most of our movement comes from the spinal cord. So a way to override that system there is to give external sensory input to the body and to the spinal cord. And when the body is shifted all the way into one leg, it's a cue to the nervous system that I can now take a step with the leg that I'm not standing in. So we need to do that. And with freezing of gait, we're standing in both feet solid. No one can take steps with both feet weight evenly distributed in both feet. So you must get that lateral shift into one leg. Okay. And so that's a nice thing that we do. We'll just go back and forth and start to get that pattern of offsetting one leg at a time. And usually this is a nice workaround to continue to take steps forward. Other things we do are backward walking. If walking forward is not in the cards that day, we'll do a lot of backward walking. Toe to heel, assisted walking. It's the same sensory pathways, just in reverse. And this is a very effective tool to continue to build on the walking pattern and the walking skill. Maybe not in that moment, but in the future. So it's always keeping those connections strong.
Bear, how do I talk to her?
You're on. I can hear you.
Yeah,
Oh, good. I'm the woman who has fallen after freezing. How can I fall in a way, if I'm going to fall, how can I fall in a way that I don't hit the back of my head?
Okay, so I'd have to see you to do this properly. But
Yeah.
so you're freezing. I'll stop sharing here. You're freezing and then falling flat back.
I freeze and then I don't know what to do, and I then lose my balance. I fall backward and hit my head.
Okay. So do you currently have a physical therapist or someone that you work with?
No, but I could find one.
Okay. Well, regardless, so try some of these strategies, try some of these, a lot of times it's just take a moment, no panic. Freezing of gait happens and it's gonna happen. It's not a matter if, it's when, so that you're not, it's not always so jarring and anxiety producing.
Mhm.
But I would recommend starting with this to side shift, very minimal side to side, and putting all the weight in one leg, and then shifting to the other, putting all the weight in the other. And while you're doing that, practice lifting the heel up in the leg that you're not standing in, just to start to override that nervous system where you're just standing in both feet, and
Okay,
see if that helps.
okay.
Yeah.
Don't
The other
panic.
thing I use a lot of is just, I don't use a lot of commands like now step and step, left and right, because we don't move like that.
Mhm.
No, none of us thinks, now I'm gonna step with my right and my left. I tend to use things like, let's get there. Let's get to that chair. Let's get through the doorway. Let's move over there. Eyes on the target. And again, it's kind of overriding that system, that disconnect, and going into a more spinal movement, which we all learned as babies to walk, going back to those neural pathways that we've had since infancy, and getting there. So try the lateral, and then try telling yourself, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. Not I'm gonna walk there, I'm gonna step there. Sometimes it's the subtlest of input that we give ourselves that overrides that barrier.
It seems like it's in open spaces. So getting there, that's not a solution for me. Just
Mhm.
what do I do? I'm right there, and there's all this space around me. Nothing to grab hold of.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So this is helpful to me. So I would also recommend maybe a light weight on your wrist, something to give you that sensory input. You get into open space and suddenly it's like you're floating in space. There's no feedback.
Right.
Think of yourself as a dolphin or a bat. You need that echolocation to let you know where you are.
Right.
And when we lose that sense, that proprioception, it's not just you, it's everyone. We're shut down. So maybe it's a weight on your wrist, or maybe it's whoever's with you can kind of tap on your foot to let you know you're here, you're in your feet, and to kind of reboot the system. Sometimes those open spaces are just a little too nothing and everything shuts down. So we need just a little tether, a little locator.
Okay. That helps.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I do have a question. I have a tendency of losing my balance when it gets dark out, so I use a cane
Mhm.
or I hold on to my wife to basically provide balance. Is that something that you can think of? I mean, is that using the cane the same as you're saying, putting the weight in your hand?
Yeah, again, the cane is, as long, I say this to everyone, as long as you're using the cane as a sensory input guide versus a crutch,
Mm.
you're good. At night, right, things are dim, it's less information, it's all kind of muddled. It's hard to distinguish things. So that cane can give you a sense of awareness, and help you feel more stable. So as long as you're using it that way and not leaning on it, compensating for any kind of muscle weakness, then I really am fine with things like that. And that's actually a really good safety strategy for many of our clientele.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's always impressed me, Crystal, when I've watched David going through this process and you mentioned this before, that the combination of know-how that example Mika has, and then her drawing on that creatively based on what David is describing to her or what she's seeing David do to find a path for going forward that works best for him. And it's just amazing how it works out.
Yeah.
Also, there's a question about cost, and how many sessions or is there for a class or course?
Yeah, great question. So our it's in hourly units, we'll say that. So we don't have it's not a traditional gym that you sign up for a membership. So it's basically you pay per session, and that's usually by hour, and then it's an hourly rate, and it's $109 per hour for our clients, and that doesn't change if you use 1 or 100. It's always the same, and there's no set frequency either, because sometimes you only need it. You may be on a good run and you may need to see us once a week or once every other week, or sometimes then there's a medication change and we need to kind of work through that. And so we need to step the intensity up. So it's, 3 times a week that you're using those sessions. So even within the program we do, it's very customized to your needs at that moment, but it's a flat rate, it's on demand. Whatever you use is what you pay for, and that's it.
David, we should probably mention the scholarship opportunity.
Yeah, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Christel, but my understanding is that a generous supporter has created a limited scholarship fund for folks to try this out for a limited number of sessions. But and we occasionally hear from Chris saying that there's some availability for that. So if people are interested in trying this out, definitely touch base with Lorenzo, with me, with Nancy Floodberg, with Debbie or Jeannie, or whoever your support group leader is. It's really great to try. And I will say also, it in the past, in a couple of years now that you've had a facility in Claremont to go to. I guess you think of it as a clinic to do the work with lots of great, clever tools and platforms and almost torture devices. David describes them sometimes, ranging from some long pole to a vibrating, platform, and but it's always great fun, and there's good music going on, and but it also very often it's just you and the therapist, and or maybe two groups working in different parts of the space. It's a wonderful space.
Where is the studio?
It's in Claremont, off of Convoy, near the REI. Right off the 52 there.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you go to the website, it's going to have all the information there, including the email to send inquiries to, and there's even an online application. It's no obligation, but at least gets the ball rolling with questions and follow-up. And then kind of back to the clinic is, for a long time, Renew Health was only mobile, but it was when Chris and I took that shift to actively pursue and lend our hand with activity-based therapy knowledge for these tech companies, for the researchers, that we knew we needed a brick and mortar to really provide that environment for researchers in tech to kind of push the industry forward. And so it's been wonderful to have that, and now with the Parkinson's scholarship, it's been even better. I mean, now we're just kind of a staple for the community, and knock on wood, we'll be having a clinic here in Orange County in the near future to do the same thing, to provide that support and opportunity to keep pushing industry forward. I mean, that's really our mission right now, and Parkinson's is our main focus at this time for that.
Does it cost more to have you come to the house?
No, but sometimes people live very far away, and so that things will be kind of calculated that way, but generally, no, it's the same.
Yeah. So that really helped out during the pandemic to keep people apart. But if they came to your house, then you wouldn't be concerned about mixing with a group. Yeah.
Yep, I know. We did not stop at all during pandemic, and actually, in many cases, we got busier because people really needed our help, our services. So we felt fortunate to have that kind of business model to keep our clientele healthy.
Christel, I have a question for you. This is Lee Johnson again.
Mhm.
If you don't have like a specific thing that you need help with, but you know that you need some kind of help, can you evaluate us?
Yep. And typically, how we start is we come in for an assessment, and we come in a blank page just like you, because we just don't know how you're going to present. And so, yes. So to answer your question, yes, we come in, we do an assessment, and that's actually something I think that's what sets kinesiologists apart also, is that we're constantly assessing, especially in a case like Parkinson's, because, minute by minute, symptoms change it. So we're always assessing. So yes.
So you said the application is on your website?
Yes. I think it's just like an online form that you fill out.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, to Lee's question about the assessment, I usually see Mika just watching David walk in the door, and you could tell that she's thinking already about how he obviously is feeling in the moment, just externally, and getting some thought. And then they chat a little bit, and he describes how he is, and then they're off to the races.
Yeah. What you don't see is her with binoculars watching him get out of the car.
Out of the car.
He's already assessing. He's like, okay, what do we got today? So yes,
right.
so that's our biggest tool, is our observation skills, hearing, sight, what is going on, because it's just so much more than biomechanics.
Well, and honestly, I often see her describing things in him that I'm not even conscious of. I mean, and once she starts pointing them out, I can see it, but they're just, in your everyday life, you sort of get into patterns of things work the way they work. And that's what you're accustomed to. So if someone says, how are you doing? Well, I'm okay. Yeah. But in fact, you're not really okay. And there's some things that can be better, but you've just accepted things as they are. And that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, as kinesiologists too, we are so lucky in that we work with our clients for so long. I mean, it's kind of a plus and a minus, right? But we get to know them so well. It's not a 12 sessions and you're done. We'll see you later. It's a treat and treat. And, we really get to know you. And in many cases, like you said, we can tell right away, you're in pain, or, oh, you're not confident today, or, hey, you're looking great. Let's do something different. So yeah, I mean, it's that creativity, that freedom, the knowledge of our clients is really the thing that sets us apart, and that's why Mika is so wonderful at her job.
Yeah, everyone is, and Parkinson's is about it. There's no end to it. You don't get to this is fixed. That's sadly, but that's the reality.
You mean that we can't be fixed?
You can fix the moment. Sometimes you can help fix the moment. You can make maybe the moment better, but it's an ongoing process. And so having a relationship with a group that you can go in for some fine tuning or major rework, depending on where you are in the moment, it's really great.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, it's not something that's covered in the talk, but we also work with the care partners and caregivers, right? So, I mean, it's so much more about building a comprehensive program and a sustainable program. And that means homework. And that means everyone's kind of looking at the same things and seeing the same things. And so, and keeping everyone safe too for the long haul, and putting the onus back on the patient to do the most they can possibly do. So that's absolutely something that's, I'd say, a little different than a traditional physical therapy, is that we try to bring everyone who's a part of the team in, so that the messaging we're giving in clinic or in home during a session is consistent throughout the rest of the days and weeks. So that sensory input is ongoing. And that's really, consistency is really the key. So,
Right.
So Christel, have you worked with any people who don't have a care partner? So in terms of a program for them, which I'm thinking of, I'm one of them, which is why I'm asking, how do you do that? Do you send us home with notes, or what do we do?
If you're gonna do the homework with notes, then we'll send you home with notes. If you need an email sent to you, then we'll send an email. If you need posters around your home to remind you, we'll set that up. So again, customized to what your needs are, and what's going to keep you compliant and continuing to do the homework is what we're going to do. So yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or specific or general? Holly?
Yeah, so I don't know whether this question's any good or not, but when I was first diagnosed just a couple years ago, everybody was like, boxing, boxing, boxing. You know, I went for boxing. I hated it. I just hated it. And I've been to Convoy. In fact, I just went today and dropped off my release, my doctor's release. And I just felt so happy when I went maybe a month ago, and I just, got to observe for a little bit. So what's so terrible about boxing that I would hate it when it's supposed to be so good for you?
Boxing, you just don't like it. There's no need to explain. It's not for everyone. But I think our job as kinesiologists is to explain to you why boxing is so good. Why it's really helping Parkinson's patients. It's not punching the bag. It's the full body workouts, the demand that it's putting. It's the reaction and the anticipatory responses. It's the weight shifts and the cross body, and now it's the vision, and it's so much you can't think. You're needing to use your spinal cord, all aspects of your central nervous system. So that's why boxing is so amazing. It's all encompassing. It's very challenging. And if you like it, great, it's for you. If you don't, you find something else that, marks off that checklist. What's a cross body? What's a full body? What's a high intensity? What's going to get me out of my head and still hit all those things? So that's what your kinesiologist will help you do.
How do you adapt the boxing for people with weak bones, with osteoporosis?
Probably more resistance, rather than hitting something. You would be kind of fighting against a resistance band. I mean, there's lots of different ways you could do isometric hold. So maybe not so much a swing and a hit, but maybe a hold. So you're getting that end of range, that sensory input on your fist, but you're not jarring the bones, but yet still stressing the muscles and the bones to build them back up. So that's a nice strategy, that kind of a isometric hold rather than a swing through.
Thank you.
I just maybe, again, Christel, to keep me make me honest here, but I think boxing became very popular because it was an existing program that was available to the community through gyms and especially trained folks that checked all the boxes that folks with Parkinson's need. These sort of come a lot of rapid movements, a lot of shifting of balance, and so we all sort of flocked to that. when in fact there are lots of ways to get those same kind of benefits from working in different ways in different contexts besides what's described as a boxing class. There's another group in Tucson, Arizona, called Power Up, and it's essentially the same. If you look through their literature, you could rework a bit and you could turn it into boxing.
Yeah.
But it happens to be, they call it Power Up. It's their sort of program. The whole big LSVT big program involves a lot of these same movements. It's just how it's packaged to some extent. So you got to find the package that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, David's exactly right. So that's where kinesiology can help you. And it's also empowering you that you start to learn how to maneuver through these times yourself. So you're not always going to have a kinesiologist around, and you may not want one around. So you'll learn these tools to keep empowering yourself to work through those symptoms. So.
Cool.
All right.
Any other questions for Christel?
Apathy is common for Parkinson's patients. Practical treatment for your session is exercise. Ooh, that's a great question. Is this Jin? Apathy. So much of our job too is being a companion, a jokester, a motivator, a cheerleader, and getting to know you in a way that's gonna motivate you. It's not always 100%, and sometimes we always say you gotta fake it till you gotta fake the funk. You just gotta go through the motions, and sometimes it just means someone knocking on your door and holding you accountable to get you to do that. So that's where a practitioner can also be a good investment for you. Like, I know 4 days out of 7, I'm not going to want to do any of this. I actually need someone to come to my door and make me do it. So, it's a big one. And it's definitely something that we consider and work through all the time, but every person is different and everyone is motivated in different ways. And we do our best to figure those out. It's a great question though.
Yeah, that's a tough one for everyone.
I'll tell you what helps though is seeing progress, even just a little bit. That helps with motivation. So.
Christel, what does the doctor's release entail?
It's a 3/4 page form that allows the doctor to inform us of any safety parameters we need to know about, any limits on heart rate, blood pressures, any other medical diagnoses that we should consider, maybe diabetes, so it's not really a release per se. It's more like an opportunity for the doctors to give information. By the way, they usually don't give a lot of information, so we usually have to ask you anyways, but it's their opportunity to list those things.
So this would be our primary physician as opposed to our movement disorder specialist?
You know what? It can be either. Any one of your physicians that can relay safety information if there are just things that we need to really watch and consider when building your program.
Thank you.
That's a great question, actually. Sometimes you don't know whether to go to your primary or your movement disorder specialist.
Well, my movement disorder specialist is so booked that to go see her is like, well, I couldn't come see you for months, but maybe I could get in through my primary.
Well, you may not even need to go there.
Go ahead. Sorry, David.
I'm sorry. This is probably where you're headed, Christel. You may not even need to go into the clinic at that point. It's just asking for. Your doc knows you, has a record of you, and sounds like it's a form that they could quickly fill out in the clinic. It's something you might do at UCSD through My Chart or Follow My Health or Kaiser's online patient portal.
Well, I'll get a hold of my doctor. I haven't been in for a while, so they may want to see me.
that's always good too.
Yeah.
It's always a
If
good
there's any
excuse.
hangups with that, we can help with that. We oftentimes will just email or fax the office directly, and it's usually 24 to 48 hour turnaround.
Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. Christel, can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us about kinesiology and how it can really make our lives better, especially people living with Parkinson's.
Yep.
You know,
Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. And you have any other questions, you can go to our website, you can call Chris. You can actually, I'll put my number here too. This is me. And you can call me anytime with questions. So happy to help out when I can.
Thank you.
This has been great, Christel. Thank you. I'm looking for your phone number in the chat, so don't sign it off yet, please.
okay, it's there. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I just
You're
need a
welcome.
minute to write it down.
Yep.
Uh-huh. It's great to see everyone. Thanks again, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Christel.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for coming, Holly. Thanks,
Thank-
Rusty, Lee, Funk
Thank
Monk's
you for
iPhone.
organizing this. I do have Christel's number.
Good. Yeah, I actually am quite enthusiastic about them. It's expensive. That's just the reality of it. But even if you go once in a while, it's like a massage. And they will come to you, which is nice.
I like the idea of somebody who's going to pay attention to me as an individual, as instead of somebody who's going to do these, who will say, oh, do this exercise, and they give me a handout and that's it.
Exactly. And there are some great physical therapists, of course, who are attentive and really do personalize things for you, of course. But you're exactly right. I mean, you're getting really personalized for you feedback about your movement in ways that you may not have ever thought about. So it's great.
Well, it sounds like a great program, and I really appreciate your organizing it for us today.
Well, and I will check in with Chris about the status of scholarships.
That would be helpful too. This is Chris Boucher.
No, it's actually it's one of the co-owners of Renew Health,
Oh.
Chris Corpus.
Oh, okay.
So, that's great. Very good. Have a great day, everybody.
How will we
I'm sorry?
learn about what you find concerning how will you tell us about the scholarships?
Let's see. I can reach out to you individually. I can also send out, I don't know if you're getting, Lee, you're probably on the mailing list I've been sending out. I
am. I get notices from you and Nancy.
I'll check in on that and be sure to include that in the next email reminder for a meeting. What the
Thanks,
status
David.
of that is.
Thank you very much.
Terrific. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you,
well, have
guys.
a great
Thanks, Jen.
week, everybody.
All right, you too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.